I'm Tickle from the show Moonshiners, and we're here in Spring Lake Park, Minnesota.
If you smell moonshine and you can't smell and you can't determine what it's made from, then you don't want to drink it.
No.
The stills weren't the biggest secret the Moonshiners cast was keeping. For years, viewers watched them build illegal stills, dodge the law, and turn backwoods traditions into one of Discovery's biggest reality shows. But once the cameras stopped rolling, their real stories began. Some built thriving businesses. Others found themselves battling legal trouble, personal tragedies, and life-changing setbacks that few fans saw coming. What really happened after the show? And where are the men and women who made Moonshiners a hit today? Join us as we reveal where the Moonshiners cast is now in 2026. Tim Smith. There's only one place to start. The man who became the face of Moonshiners, Tim Smith. Tim from Climax, Virginia, has been the face of this show since day one, and in 2026, he has somehow managed to be both the most successful cast member and the one who just blew up his own image by intentionally going fully illegal again on national television in season 15. Here's the backstory. Tim didn't stumble into moonshining. He was born into a generation of shiners, so he started learning the craft at a young age, the same way other kids in rural Virginia learned to drive a tractor. It was a family tradition wrapped in federal criminal code, and the Smith family had made peace with that distinction generations before Tim ever picked up a copper pot. What nobody expected when Moonshiners launched in December 2011 was that this shirtless, overall-wearing man from Pittsylvania County would become genuinely beloved by millions of people who had never been within 500 miles of Appalachia. Tim had something the camera loves and money can't manufacture: a naturalness that made moonshining feel romantic, skilled, and deeply human all at once. Then, in 2013, he did something that actually shocked the backwoods distilling community. He went completely legal. He launched Climax Moonshine, built on his family's 100-year-old recipe, in partnership with a Virginia distillery. The brand was a hit from day one. National publications called it the best moonshine being commercially produced in the country. Tim expanded into Climax whiskey, with distribution spreading across Georgia, Tennessee, West Virginia, and South Carolina. The man who had been dodging law enforcement for decades was now selling legally on retail shelves. What the show never made a big deal out of was that Tim was building this brand while also serving as the volunteer fire chief for Climax, Virginia, a position he'd held since 2004. He worked as a mechanic 60 hours a week. He served 6 years in the U.S. Army before any of this. Tim Smith's entire biography is a lot for one person, and television only ever showed a fraction of it. But going legal turned out to have a ceiling. The taxes, the distributors, the middlemen, the retail markups. So by the time everyone along the supply chain took their cut, the person who actually crafted the product was left with surprisingly little. Tim watched the legal spirits industry squeeze the margins out of everything he'd built and quietly started eyeing the door back to the outlaw side. When American trade tariffs created a shortage of affordable liquor in Canada and a black market opportunity opened up north of the border, Tim didn't hesitate for one episode. Season 15 premiered January 6, 2026, with Tim back in the woods, back to breaking federal law, and running tariff-free shine toward Canada alongside Tickle and Henry Law. Within the first few episodes, rivals showed up and shot bullet holes in their steel. A preacher confronted the crew in the forest. Then someone burned $20,000 worth of their product to the ground. This led to Tim eventually relocating the entire operation to Kentucky. And the season finale involved an attempt to move shine by airplane. The man spent 14 years convincing the government he was respectable, and he handed all of that back the moment a better deal appeared, which honestly makes him more interesting in 2026 than he's been in years. But right beside him is the partner who has a far more chaotic personal story. One that includes a shotgun conviction, 5 months in an actual jail cell, and somehow, improbably, ending up as a restaurant owner. So what in the world happened to Tickle? Steve Tickle. If Tim Smith is the heart of Moonshiners, Stephen Ray Tickle is the chaos it runs on. And the thing about Tickle is that he doesn't perform chaos for the cameras. He genuinely lives it, around the clock, in every season of his life, whether Discovery is filming or not. He showed up in Season 1 as Tim's right hand, the guy who would build a still in a place where no sane person would put one, process overripe fruit nobody else wanted, and find a creative solution to every logistical disaster that showed up. His distilling instincts were sharp, but his personal instincts were a different story. In 2013, police in Danville, Virginia, found him sitting alone in his car outside a convenience store in the afternoon with an open container of alcohol and the kind of smell that removes all ambiguity from a situation. He was arrested for public intoxication and was out of jail by the end of the day, paid his fines, and was apparently unbothered. In 2015, he was arrested again, this time for carrying an illegal sawed-off shotgun in his truck, while also driving on a suspended license. He told everyone the gun belonged to a friend, and he'd simply forgotten it was there. Nobody believed him. The judge certainly didn't. In 2016, he was found guilty and got a 3-year suspended sentence. Then he violated probation, and the court handed him 5 actual months of jail time. He served every day of it. When he walked out in 2017, Tim Smith was standing in the parking lot. They went to a diner and ate breakfast together, while Discovery Channel filmed the whole thing because every moment of Tickle's life is apparently content. After all of that, something changed. He got sober and got married to Carol in a ceremony that leaned entirely into the moonshine aesthetic, because nobody expected otherwise. And then, in early 2024, Tickle and Carol opened the Tickle's Table, a home-style diner in Ringgold, Virginia. The man who was arrested drinking alone in a parking lot in 2013 is now running a restaurant with his wife. Reality television has produced stranger transformations, but not many. In season 14, he was in full creative mode. He built a dead man's still in a location that made no practical sense, revived an old bootleg route through backwoods Virginia, and turned surplus blueberries into shine before they rotted. In season 15, he and Henry Law built a functioning snorkel kit from scratch to drive through floodwaters and reach a still site. Then Tickle ran tariff-free apple brandy toward Canada, while Tim handled the larger Kentucky operation. This man owns a diner. He also runs illegal liquor across an international border. Both of those things are simultaneously true in 2026. And the question hanging over all of it is whether the diner is a sign that Tickle is finally building something stable or just something to do between runs. And speaking of building something real, 2 of his castmates didn't just build a restaurant. They built an entire award-winning distillery empire out of moonshining school lessons from a dead legend. Let's talk about them. Mark Ramsey and Digger Maines. To understand Mark and Digger, you have to start with the man whose ghost still haunts this entire franchise. Marvin Popcorn Sutton was the most famous backwoods moonshiner in American history, a Cock County, Tennessee man who wore overalls and a battered straw hat, wrote a self-published distilling guide, made his own documentary, and became the subject of a film that won a regional Emmy. He trained distillers who trained distillers. When Moonshiners launched in 2011, with archive footage of popcorn in the opening episodes, the show was establishing its own spiritual lineage. Mark and Digger sit directly inside that lineage. Popcorn died in March 2009, months before Discovery greenlit the show. Facing a federal prison sentence for moonshining and illegal firearm possession, he chose to end his life rather than report. His wife told the press he simply could not go to prison. However, the philosophy he taught lives on in every Tennessee shiner on this show. Mark Ramsey absorbed that philosophy early. He grew up exploring the forests of East Tennessee, was introduced to a local moonshine expert as a teenager, and learned the craft hands-on the way all real shiners learn it, by actually doing it, badly at first, and then remarkably well. He joined Moonshiners in Season 3. A year later, he recruited his longtime friend Eric Digger Maines, who had his own distilling education through Cockey County's Backwoods network. Digger came aboard in Season 4, and their chemistry was immediately undeniable, the kind built over years of actual friendship. What they then constructed is the most impressive business story this show has ever produced. Sugarland's Distilling Company opened in Gatlinburg, Tennessee in 2014. 10 years later, it has grown into a full portfolio operation. Sugarland's Shine, Sippin' Cream, High Rock Vodka launched with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his wife Amy in 2022. Roaming Man Tennessee Straight Rye Whiskey, and the new Broken Antler Flavored Whiskey. Roaming Man won 4 double gold medals at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition across recent years, including 2 in 2025 alone. Their personal collaboration line tells its own story. Rye Apple Moonshine in 2015, Hazelnut Rum in 2017, and Mountain Legacy Corn Whiskey in January 2024. A 120-proof unaged whiskey made from Tennessee corn that sold out its launch weekend at the Gatlinburg Distillery. In March 2026, American Flat Track announced Sugarlands as their official moonshine partner for the 2026 season, with Mark and Digger serving as Grand Marshals at both the Atlanta and Peoria events. These two men are currently at racetracks, running a distillery, filming Season 15, and still running illegal shine in the Tennessee mountains simultaneously. The width of their operation in 2026 is genuinely staggering. Mark and Digger took the legacy of a dead legend and built something that will outlast the television show that made them famous, which is remarkable. But it's actually not the most dramatic personal story of this cast, because the most dramatic story belongs to a man who broke his neck at Daytona at 80 miles per hour and came back to finish a bunker he'd been building for 10 years. And that story is genuinely something else. Josh Owens. Josh Owens is from Columbus, North Carolina, and before he was a Moonshiners cast member, he was the stepson of a Moonshiners legend. His stepfather was Jim Tom Hedrick, the gravelly-voiced, story-spinning backwoods shiner who appeared on the show from Season 2 through Season 6 and was one of the most genuinely beloved figures in the show's early years. Jim Tom passed away in September 2023 after a long fight with kidney cancer at 82. Discovery called him a treasured member of the family. Josh carries that mentorship visibly in the way he works around a still. What Josh is equally known for is motorcycle racing. Not as a hobby, professionally, at major sanctioned events. And that combination of passions has put him in the hospital twice in 4 years, in ways that were not minor. The first time, in late 2021, a vintage motorcycle tire blew during a race and threw him. Torn rotator cuff, broken left collarbone, broken shoulder blade, and broken ribs. He recovered faster than anyone expected and was back within months. The second time was different, on an entirely different scale. On the 4th of March, 2023, at Daytona International Speedway, Josh was competing in a sanctioned motorcycle race when he lost control coming around the final turn and hit the wall at approximately 80 miles per hour. The injuries were catastrophic: fractured neck, fractured back, broken left arm, broken legs, and broken shoulder. He was placed in a medically induced coma for 10 days. When he came out, he was in a wheelchair and had no health insurance to cover what were clearly enormous medical bills. A GoFundMe was launched by friends. Tim Smith posted from beside Josh's hospital bed that both his arms were working and he would still be able to make shine. Because that is apparently what moonshiners say when their friend is in a coma. Josh posted his own video from the hospital with 50 staples visible in one of his wounds. He looked directly at the camera and said he was blessed to have a second chance to leave a better legacy. Fractured neck, fractured spine, 50 staples. Talking about legacy, he returned for season 13, largely bedridden. By season 14, he was mobile and distilling again. Season 15 has him completing a construction project he had been building and planning for a decade, an underground bunker still site that nobody on the outside was supposed to know existed, and celebrating its first run with gold flake cinnamon shine because, why not? He also spent part of the season investigating the source of industrial ethanol being passed off as real moonshine across Appalachia, tracking the supply chain with Mark and Digger. The man who should have been in a wheelchair permanently is running shine out of an underground bunker he spent 10 years building, which is inspiring and deeply moonshiners at the same time. But while Josh was finishing his bunker, the show lost one of its most beloved souls, and this loss hit different. So before we continue, who was Kenny Law? And why did his death shake this cast to its core? Kenny Law. Kenny Law was not the flashiest member of the Moonshiners cast. He wasn't running international smuggling operations or building distillery empires. What he was, quietly, consistently, without needing the camera to validate it, was the real thing. A third-generation moonshiner from Franklin County, Virginia, who came from a family that had been distilling for roughly 200 years, tracing the lineage back to an ancestor named Amos Law, who started the tradition long before any living person on this show was born. He joined Moonshiners in season 8 alongside his cousin Henry and became a fixture. He was the warm guy in camouflage and a ball cap with white hair and calm blue eyes, who knew exactly what he was doing around a still and didn't need to perform for anyone. He and Henry ran large fruit brandy batches as their signature and co-managed Law's Choice Distillery in Franklin County, a legitimate business they built from their television exposure. Kenny also ran a roofing company in Rocky Mount, Virginia. He was never idle. The moment that says the most about who Kenny Law actually was happened in 1977, decades before any camera found him. An indoor moonshining operation caught fire from a propane explosion. Kenny got out of the building safely. Then he went back in, voluntarily, into a burning building to pull his father out of the fire. He succeeded, but spent months recovering from severe burns at UVA Hospital. When he healed, he went back to making shine, because that's the kind of person he was. In 2024, he had a heart attack. He'd been managing diabetes for years alongside it. In January 2025, a blood infection sent him to a Virginia hospital. His cousin Henry told TMZ that Kenny's body simply wore out, fighting the infection on top of everything else he was already managing. He died on January 14th, 2025, at 68 years old, surrounded by his family. Co-star Amanda Bryant posted that the moonshine world had lost a true legend. The official Moonshiners account told him to shine on. Season 15 started 3 weeks after he died. Henry Law is still on the show, still distilling, carrying the Law family name forward. In 2025, Discovery greenlit something genuinely different. Tim, Tickle, Mark, and Digger investigating actual crimes. So what exactly is Moonshiners? True crime and shine, And is it actually good? The spin-off nobody expected. In 2025, Discovery greenlit Moonshiners, True Crime and Shine, a spin-off that puts Tim, Tickle, Mark, and Digger in an investigative format. The premise: these four men use their genuine insider credibility in the moonshine underworld to investigate real crimes connected to backwoods distilling, syndicates, murders, illegal operations gone catastrophically wrong, and stories that mainstream media never covers because they happen in places mainstream media doesn't go. It sounds wild and also makes complete sense. These are people who actually know the geography, the culture, the people, and the unwritten codes that govern this world. When a murder happens near a still site in rural Virginia, Tim Smith knows things about that community that a reporter from New York City will never find. That specific insider access is what the spin-off is built on, and the early episodes lean into it fully. The franchise now includes Moonshiners, Master Distiller, the competition format where Tim mentors legal distillers, alongside the original show in its 15th season, and the new True Crime spin-off. Discovery has taken what started as a single show about backwoods outlaws and quietly built a multi-format content universe around it, which is either impressive or a sign that they're squeezing the last drops out of a concept. Which of these stories left you stunned? And if Tim Smith could go legal for 14 years, build a national brand, and still walk back into the woods the moment the money made more sense, was he ever really done with this life? Or was the legal chapter just a very long detour? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.